Have you ever embellished the truth before? Like you did something really awesome, but when you told others about it, you just added a tiny little bit more to sweeten the story. I mean, you weren't straight up lying about anything because the thing you were talking about actually happened, so there really isn't anything straight up deceptive about it, right? If you have, and I would argue that everyone has done something like this, even me, then you likely related at least a smidgen with the newest member to join the ranks of Genshin Impact. Today, we're going to psychoanalyze the man whom my wife refers to as the cow thrower, the Crimson Oni himself, Arataki Itto. This is a little psychology in Teyvat. We are first introduced to Arataki Itto as a wanted criminal on the loose being pursued by the Tenryou Commission, as well as having a commission placed on him by the Adventurers Guild for stealing both possessions and, frighteningly enough, people.
That's correct. This particular Oni is quite vocal and audacious, so he already has quite the reputation on the streets. That said, he has never been caught up in major trouble of any kind. So it came as a surprise to learn that he has recently been accused of stealing things, and sometimes even whisking away the people themselves.
He is well known throughout Inazuma for playing jovial games with children and having a rather persistently competitive attitude, which seems to be at odds with what he's accused of. This means that he won't give up until he's won whatever game he's playing, which the children love because it means that he effectively keeps playing with them forever. Yeah, he doesn't exactly have what I would call a strategic mind. After we catch up to him after getting some leads from the Sango Detective Agency, we get roped into participating in beetle fighting with another young boy named Daisuke that Itto rescued and is staying with Granny Oni in a small village. This is where we get our first direct introduction to Itto's rather nonchalantly playful personality, but more importantly, we are exposed to his incessant need to self-aggrandize himself.
Well, whatever. If you think I'm going back with you, you can forget it. I'd walk away if I were you. I pack a mean punch, you know. I don't want to hurt any regular folks like you.
Self-aggrandizement is the act of making something appear greater than what is actually warranted by the facts. Many psychologists over the ages have accredited this pattern of behavior to people with overdeveloped egos, an expansion of power, wealth, rank, or honor, or a need to protect oneself from a lack of self-esteem, kind of like the opposite of Bennett. I'll have a link to my video on Bennett's possible psychosis in the description for those that are interested. Anyways, Itto is very closely skirting the line between aggrandizing and lying. Do note that self-aggrandizement is not necessarily considered a negative in society, as many psychoses are. Many might mistaken it to even be confidence, as it can take such a form if done well. What it does have in common with other psychoses is that if it's taking too far over to the extreme, there can be dangerous, socially isolating ramifications. Ultimately, one is not being entirely truthful when self-aggrandizing, but the shift away from the truth is so minuscule that it's very easy for us to trick ourselves and others into thinking that we are indeed still within the realm of telling the truth. To make matters even more confusing, the consequences for the magnitude of this shift away from the truth is subjective, meaning that it depends on any given person's perspective. Not only that, but the greater the original magnitude of something, the less we really care about the differences. For example, if I were to tell you that I, Keeper, had made 500 videos, when in actuality I had only made 495, most people would not really care, as the difference between the two amounts in relation to the total is not that much. 5 videos out of 500 is only 1%. Now, if I had told you that I had made 10 videos but only made 5, the difference will feel more significant, and I emphasize the word feel, even though the difference is the same, 5 videos. But 5 out of 10 videos is a whopping 50%, much larger than the 1% from earlier. So the art of self-aggrandizing oneself actually requires skill to be able to maneuver through these differences to create changes that are not detected by our senses that oftentimes focus on fairness. This is made even more difficult to detect when actual numbers are no longer used. as is with Arataki Itto going around constantly telling everyone that he's the best. Best compared to what, and in what arena? We cannot quantify what is best without a standard. When Paimon reveals that she has discovered a beetle larger than any other that Itto has even seen, he carefully plays the beetle down, diminishing its obvious stature while still acknowledging its heft.
Oh, you got some experience catching beetles too, huh?
Nope, this is the first one Paimon's ever caught.
Well, looks like you got a real knack for this. You'll be a fellow beetle fighting expert in no time. I mean, not as good as me, but still.
Oh, so overall not that good then.
Anyway, great. With both your beetle and mine, I can tell this'll finally be the one. This time, I'm gonna win for sure.
People who self-aggrandize themselves do this to limit the distance between themselves and others. They never lose, but of course when they do, they don't lose by much. Psychologically, they will always be within reaching distance of winning. Listen carefully to how Itto actually gives himself a bit of credit for Paimon's win.
Yay! We won! Ha! Paimon knew Crimson Cyclone would be the best!
Boy, did that one put up a fight. Woo! It wiped the floor with Stripey Ghost. I know a real beetle trainer when I see one. Way to kick some beetle butt, partner.
It's this playing around with perception that self-aggrandizers must be very careful about, as it's just a stone step away from a lie. And this is exactly what the Blue Oni exposes in Itto when we meet him later on. Just a warning for those that have not yet fully completed this quest yet. We're about to go into spoiler territory regarding the latter half of this quest. The first half was to show us what kind of person Itto is, and the second half is meant to give him an opportunity to resolve his psychological dilemma. Now that you've been warned, let's continue. We eventually run into the Blue Oni named Taguya amidst a band of thieves that we dispatch, and holy crap, is Itto's gameplay fun to perform. It's so satisfying that charge attack is just a treat to watch. Sorry, I just had to get that out there. For those of you that are aware of Jungian psychology, you may have recognized a rather useful method of character development here. In Jungian psychology, of which I intend to do a full video of in the future, because it actually has a ton of connections with Genshin Impact's character arcs, there is a psychological concept called confronting the shadow, which is pretty much when a character is forced to face their darker side of themselves, a part of themselves that they wish to have pushed away for most of their lives due to it being unwanted. The Blue Oni, or Taguya in this case, represents Arataki Itto's shadow. To explain very, very briefly, every person, including you and me, has three fundamental aspects: the ego, the self, and the shadow. The ego is you, who you are at the moment. The self is the greatest moral form that you aspire to be, and the shadow is your dark side, the parts of your psyche that you wish to expunge. Aspects like hate, greed, or weakness. The mechanism that allows one to achieve their self, rather simplistically put, is the process known as confronting the shadow. Once you have completely resolved all of your shadows, you become the greatest or highest version of yourself. You can immediately start to see how this could connect to some of Genshin Impact's deeper concepts like ascension, because in Jungian psychology, the self is likened with that of becoming a god. But let's get back to Arataki Itto for a sec. Forcing an interaction between these two, Taguya accuses Itto of this.
Let me ask you, Arataki Itto, what exactly do you contribute to human society? You're a blundering fool who can't hold down a real job, a laughingstock of the town, and worse still, you let them get your vision during the Vision Hunt decree. Protecting the Oni pride? Ha! You wouldn't know how if you tried.
If you were to carefully analyze these two Oni, you would eventually discover that they are the polar opposites of one another. They are each other's shadow, the part of their psyches that they both wish to expunge. However, in this quest, they will be forced not to destroy one another, but to accept and integrate the other into themselves, both physically and psychologically. Let's go over a couple of these opposites, and then I would implore you to think about any that I may have missed, and jot them down in the comments below. First, the obvious. One of them is red and the other is blue. These two colors in many different cultures are seen as opposing one another. An example of this is expressed by the idea that boys are associated by the color blue and girls are associated by the color pink, which is a more muted version of red. Both Itto and Kaguya can also be associated with order and chaos, which are also related to male and female respectively, oddly enough in real-world alchemic lore. Now, you may think me sexist for attributing order to being masculine and chaos to being feminine, but according to Jungian psychology, there is no positive or negative traits attributed to these concepts. They are simply what they are. Males would typically go out into the world to hunt animals and later build civilizations and thus order the disorder of nature, whereas chaos refers to the chaotic state of the universe that birthed all things into existence, like a cosmic womb, which is associated to being feminine. Yeah, not gonna lie, back in the day, both psychologists and alchemists had some really wacky ideas. With that said, Itto's personality is far more chaotic, whereas Kaguya's is stern and ordered. Itto is laughing and joking around, whereas Kaguya is straight to the point. Itto goes where he pleases so long as he does not commit any crimes, whereas Kaguya remains in the shadows. Itto rescues children while Kaguya is kidnapping people. And finally, Itto interacting with the humans revitalizes his Oni heritage, whereas Kaguya struggles not to break the agreement for fear that it will make him an Oni no longer. Itto and Kaguya are diametrically opposed in every single way. I will reiterate, they are each other's shadow. And this does not appear to change in terms of their character arcs. Both are struggling because neither of them have confronted or integrated their shadows. Itto is too chaotic to the point where he has squandered his freedom, as Kaguya accuses him of not having a job and embarrassing the Oni name. While Kaguya is so bound to his role that he has lost sight of the true reason behind the Blue Oni's original sacrifice, and it has left him with nothing but scorn. It is only by learning from one another throughout this quest that they can integrate their shadows, integrate each other's psychology into themselves in order to achieve a balance where they are in control of their actions, rather than their shadows taking over. It is likely this imbalance in Arataki Itto's personality that birthed a very pointed need for self-aggrandizement, to the point where some might argue Itto had lost track of who he was. Just like Kaguya, he had lost track of the true reason behind the Crimson Oni's desire to be with the humans to begin with. All in all, Arataki Itto is, in my opinion, one of the, if not the most bombastic characters in Genshin Impact's roster, and I do not believe that he is finished with the confrontation of his shadow. In fact, there is another character that I think would have an even greater effect on him than Kaguya, as she has a far more personal relationship with him. This particular quest dealt with Itto's ancestral shadow, but there is still another part of him that he will likely have to confront sooner or later, and that is his feud and friendly rivalry with a certain Inazuman general, but that's of course another story for another time. So, what do you think? Does Itto's self-aggrandizement go way too far to the point where we should consider him unhealthily lying to others? Were Kaguya's accusations levied on Itto actually correct? Or is Itto just a misunderstood Oni who just wants to have fun and win every competition without question? If there's a character in Genshin Impact that you think would be worth psychoanalyzing, let me know in the comments and I will do my best to look into the possibilities. And if you have your own thoughts about Itto's possible self-aggrandizement, jot them down there as well. Also, I mentioned Jungian psychology in this video, and I want to gauge how many of you would be interested in me doing a video on that in relation to Genshin Impact. I'll have a comment that you can like to show your interest in that possibility. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. By liking the video and subscribing to the channel, you'll be actively telling YouTube that this video and all my other videos are worth watching. Better yet, please share this video with a fellow Genshin Impact player so that we can start a dialogue on the psychological aspects of the characters that we all love. And follow me on Twitter to know when I post and read some Genshin memes along the way. And thank you for visiting A Little Psychology in Teyvat.
Hey, my name's Paimon. That's not true. Stupid question. Why would you ask that? No way. Just try on. Nothing untitled. Mark my words. Vengeance will be mine. Paimon's all out of brain juice again.